Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to the golden age of trans-Saharan trade. Around the year 1350, where you'll join one of history's most legendary journeys. Picture this. You're standing at the edge of the world's largest hot desert, watching massive caravans of heavily laden camels prepare for a crossing that will take you across nearly 1,000 miles of sand, salt, and endless sky. The air shimmers with heat, even in the pre-dawn darkness. And somewhere in the distance, you can hear the low, rumbling complaints of camels being loaded with precious cargo. Just try not to invent the compass by accident, though honestly, these Tuareg guides could probably navigate to Timbuktu blindfolded. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment letting us know where you're re-listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It is always fascinating to see how this little community spans the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the sound of bells, not church bells, but the gentle tinkling of camel bells, mixed with voices speaking in a melodic language. You're slowly beginning to recognize as to the air tastes of dust and something else, something sharp and mineral that you'll soon learn is the essence of the Sahara itself. You're relying on a woven mat beneath a leather tent that smells of lanolin and years of desert travel. And as consciousness fully returns, you remember, you're no longer in your familiar world. Somehow, impossibly, you've found yourself in 14th century North Africa, in the sprawling trade city of Sijil Massa, at the very edge of the Sahara Desert. Your body feels different, leaner, adapted to this harsh environment in ways that suggest you've been here for weeks already. Your hands are calloused from handling ropes and loading cargo, and when you sit up, you instinctively reach for the blue tagelmust head wrap. That's become as natural to you as breathing. The indigo dye has stained your skin slightly, marking you as someone who belongs to this world of endless horizons and ancient trade routes. Outside your tent, the pre-dawn bustle of caravan preparation fills the air with purpose and anticipation. You can hear the distinctive grunting and groaning of camels as they're being loaded, the sharp commands of caravan masters, and the gentle laughter of traders who've made this journey dozens of times before. The smell of wood smoke mixes with the earthy scent of animals, and the dusty aroma of countless good salt, dried dates, leather, and spices from lands both near and impossibly far away. As you emerge from your tent, the sky above is that particular shade of deep purple that comes just before dawn in the desert, scattered with more stars than you've ever seen in your life. The air is surprisingly cool, almost cold, a sharp contrast to the blazing heat you know will come with the sun. You're wearing loose, flowing robes dyed in desert color, sandy browns and deep blues that will help you blend with both landscape and shadow. Your feet are protected by sturdy leather sandals designed for walking on hot sand. And around your waist is a belt holding a curved dagger, a water gourd, and a leather pouch containing your most precious possessions. You are, in this world, a salt trader, not the leader of this great caravan, but an important member nonetheless. Salt, you've learned, is literally worth its weight in gold here at the southern edge of the Sahara, where the great trade routes converge like rivers flowing toward an ocean of sand. The massive slabs of rock salt that will anchor this caravan as cargo come from the legendary mines of deep in the desert's heart, and your job is to help transport them safely to the markets of Timbuktu and beyond, where they'll be traded for gold, ivory, and slaves. A figure approaches through the dim light, tall, lean, moving with the fluid grace of someone born to the desert. This is Amayaz, your caravan leader, a Tuareg merchant whose family has been crossing these sands for generations. His face is partially veiled in the traditional manner, leaving only his dark eyes visible, eyes that seem to hold all the wisdom of the desert itself. When he speaks, his voice carries the authority of someone who has successfully guided hundreds of travelers, across one of the world's most unforgiving landscapes. "The stars tell us it's time," he says in Arabic, though you catch the subtle accent that marks him as a native Tamashek speaker. The camels are nearly loaded, and the morning star rises. "We'll reach the first wells by tomorrow evening, if Allah wills it." You nod, understanding that in the desert, everything depends on water, timing, and the grace of forces far beyond human control. As you help with the final preparations, you can't help but marvel at the organized chaos around you. This caravan is massive, nearly 300 camels, over 100 men, and cargo worth more than most people will see in a lifetime. Each animal carries roughly 300 pounds of goods, mostly the precious salt slabs that make this journey profitable, but also dates, leather goods, and trade items from the Mediterranean coast. You wonder what your old world would think of this commerce system, this network of trust and tradition that spans continents. The pre-dawn air hums with methodical activity as you join the careful choreography of caravan preparation. Your hands already know the weight and texture of salt slabs, each one roughly 2 feet long and weighing about 30 pounds, crystalline white with veins of pink and gray that catch the firelight like frozen lightning. These aren't just trade goods. They're the foundation of an economic system that connects the Mediterranean world to the heart of Africa. And you're handling pieces of what the Arabs call white gold. You watch as experienced handlers demonstrate the precise art of loading a camel. The animals themselves seem to understand their role in this ancient dance. They kneel with resignation rather than protest, though their complaints echo across the camp in a symphony of grumbling that would make a philosopher laugh. "Listen," says Mahmoud, a weather-beaten trader who's become your informal teacher, "the camels complain now. But wait until they're walking. Then they save their energy for what matters." His Arabic carries the accent of someone from far to the east, possibly Syria or Iraq, and you realize this caravan is truly international in scope. Each camel's load must be perfectly balanced: salt slabs on one side, counterweighted with water vessels, dried provisions, and trade goods on the other. The loading process follows rules developed over centuries of desert travel. Too much weight, and the animal won't survive the journey. Poor balance, and the load will shift, potentially injuring the camel or spilling precious cargo onto the sand. You're learning to tie the elaborate knots that secure everything in place, your fingers working with rope made from palm fibers. Strong enough to hold a fortune in salt, but flexible enough to give with the camel's movement. The social hierarchy of the caravan reveals itself in these quiet moments before departure. At the top are the Tuareg guides, like Amayas, whose knowledge of water sources, navigation, and desert weather makes them literally invaluable. Below them are the established merchants, men who've made this journey many times and whose word carries weight in matters of trade and travel. Then come traders like yourself, competent, trusted, but still learning the deepest mysteries of desert commerce. At the bottom are the hired hands, mostly young men seeking adventure or fortune, whose job is to manage the animals and handle the heavy work. But this hierarchy isn't rigid like the class systems you might expect. Out here, competence and character matter more than birth or background. You've seen Amayas listen carefully to suggestions from the youngest camel handler, and you've watched established merchants defer to guides who might own nothing but their knowledge and experience. The desert, it seems, has a way of stripping away pretenses and revealing what people are truly made of. As you work, you notice the careful rituals that mark this departure. Amayas moves through the camp, touching various loads and murmuring what you recognize as protective prayers. Several of the traders burn small amounts of frankincense, sending sweet smoke into the still air as an offering for safe travel. One elderly merchant from Fez carefully wraps a small Quran in silk and places it in his personal, while another produces a leather pouch filled with sand from Mecca. Tangible connection to the holy city that many of these men have visited during their pilgrimage years. The camels themselves are marvels of adaptation that never cease to amaze you. Their feet, broad as dinner plates, seem designed specifically for walking on sand. Their nostrils can close completely during sandstorms, and their thick eyelashes provide natural protection against blowing dust. Most remarkably, they can survive for days without water, metabolizing moisture from their own fat reserves in their distinctive humps. Watching them work, you understand why the Arabs call them ships of the desert. They carry civilization across an ocean of sand with the same reliability that vessels transport goods across the Mediterranean. Your personal gear reflects your new identity as a desert trader. Your water gourd, made from a dried calabash and sealed with beeswax, holds precious liquid that you've learned to sip rather than gulp. Your traveling bag contains dried dates, strips of preserved meat, and hard biscuits that will remain edible for weeks in the desert heat. Most importantly, you carry your trading ledger, a small book bound in leather where you record transactions, debts, and the complex web of credit that makes long-distance commerce possible. The economic system you're part of is more sophisticated than many people realize. This isn't simple barter, but rather a network of credit, trust, and delayed payment that spans thousands of miles. The salt you're carrying might eventually be traded in Timbuktu for gold dust, which could then be exchanged in Cairo for silk, which might finally be sold in Venice for silver. Your ledger contains not just records of goods, but also letters of credit, recommendations, and the intricate documentation that makes such long-distance trade possible. As the eastern sky begins to lighten from black to deep purple, you feel the subtle shift in energy that signals imminent departure. The camels seem to sense it, too. Their complaints become more ritualistic, less genuinely distressed. You wonder what your old world would make of this moment, this perfect balance of human planning and animal cooperation that is about to carry you across one of Earth's most challenging landscapes. The first step into the Sahara feels like stepping off the edge of the known world, as the caravan stretches into a long, undulating line behind you. The last buildings of Sijil Masa fade into morning haze, until they might as well be mirages themselves. The transition from settled civilization to pure desert is gradual. One moment you walking past palm groves and mud brick houses, and the next you're surrounded by sand that stretches unbroken to every horizon, rolling away in waves that seem to breathe with the wind. Your camo, a temperamental female named Tala, which means palm tree, in Tamashek, has settled into the steady, swaying rhythm that will carry you both across hundreds of miles. Riding a camel, you've discovered, is nothing like riding a horse, where a horse's gait is predictable. A camel moves with a rolling motion that's simultaneously soothing and disorienting, like being rocked in a very large, very slow boat. The key Mahmoud taught you is to relax completely and let your body flow with the movement rather than fighting it. Resist the camel, he said with a grin, and you'll be sore for a week. Become the camel, and you'll float across the desert like a cloud. The morning sun climbs quickly here, transforming the cool purple dawn into blazing gold with startling speed. By the time you've been walking for 2 hours, the heat is already intense enough that you understand why caravans prefer to travel during the cooler hours. Your tagalmust indigo head wrap that marks you as someone who belongs to this desert world isn't just fashion, but essential equipment. Properly wrapped, it protects your head and neck from the sun while allowing air circulation, and when the wind picks up, you can adjust it to cover your face completely. The landscape around you shifts constantly, despite its apparent emptiness. What looked from a distance like uniform sand reveals itself as an intricate terrain of different textures and colors. Some areas are covered in fine, golden sand that shifts and whispers under the camel's feet. Others feature harder packed surfaces scattered with small stones, creating natural pathways that experienced guides can read like roads. In the distance, you can see the dark lines that mark areas of black rock volcanic remnants from ages Past that, create their own microclimates and navigation landmarks. Amayas rides at the front of the caravan, but his leadership isn't the shouting, commanding style you might expect. Instead, he communicates through subtle gestures, the positioning of his camel, and occasional calls that carry information rather than orders. When he raises his hand in a particular way, the entire caravan knows to adjust course slightly. When he dismounts to examine the ground, everyone understands that he's reading signs invisible to less experienced eyes, the direction of wind patterns, the age of animal tracks, the subtle indicators that might reveal the location of water or warn of approaching weather. The social dynamics of travel reveal themselves in these first hours. Conversations flow up and down the caravan line as traders share news, gossip, and observations. You'll learn that Ibrahim, the elderly merchant riding ahead of you, has made this journey 47 times and can predict weather changes by the behavior of his camel. Behind you, a young man named Yusuf is making his first crossing, and his nervous excitement reminds you of your own amazement at finding yourself in this extraordinary situation. The camels themselves have their own hierarchy and relationships. Tala, you notice, consistently tries to position herself near a large male camel named Hakim, while actively avoiding another female who apparently wronged her during the loading process. Their social dynamics play out in subtle ways: a tilt of the head, a positioning of ears, small adjustments in walking speed that maintain preferred distances. You wonder if the camels, like their human companions, form friendships and rivalries during these long journeys. Water discipline begins immediately and absolutely. Your water gourd, which seemed adequate in the cool morning air, now feels precious beyond description. Every sip is measured, considered, savored. The guides have explained that the first water source is a full day's journey ahead. And while the camels can easily manage this distance, humans must be more careful. You've learned to wet your lips frequently with tiny amounts of water rather than taking larger drinks, and to time your water consumption with the natural rhythms of thirst and exertion. The silence of the desert is unlike any quiet you've ever experienced. In your old world, silence was the absence of noise, but here it feels like a presence unto itself, vast, encompassing, almost breathing. When the wind dies completely, you can hear your own heartbeat, the soft shuffling of camel feet in sand, and the distant musical tinkling of bells attached to the lead animals. It's a silence that makes you acutely aware of your own existence, your place in this immense landscape, and the remarkable fact that humans have been crossing these same sands for over 1,000 years. By mid-morning, the heat has become a living thing, pressing down from above while radiating up from the sand below. You've learned to adjust your posture and clothing constantly, seeking whatever small advantages of shade and air circulation are possible. The experienced traders move with an economy of motion that conserves energy and minimizes exposure. And you're beginning to understand that every gesture, every breath, every decision must be calculated against the desert's demands. The sun reaches its merciless zenith, and the entire caravan responds with the practiced precision of a desert ballet you only beginning to appreciate. Without any apparent signal, the long line of camels begins to converge toward a slight depression in the landscape, where ancient winds have carved a natural shelter between low dunes. This is the sacred hour of midday rest, when even the hardiest desert travelers acknowledge the sun's supremacy and seek whatever refuge the landscape offers. Watching the camp establish itself is like witnessing a piece of clockwork designed by nomads. The camels are guided into a rough circle and made to kneel, their loads providing windbreaks, and their bodies creating pockets of shade. Within minutes, Line 2 shelters appear as traders stretch cloth between camel saddles and thrust walking sticks into the sand. You help unfurl a large piece of woven wool that creates a communal space where a dozen men can escape the direct assault of the sun. The temperature difference between blazing sunlight and this improvised Shade feels like the difference between life and death. Tala settles beside you with a satisfied grunt, her large brown eyes half closed in what you're learning to recognize as camel contentment. Like all her kind, she's perfectly adapted for this environment. Her body temperature can rise several degrees without distress, and her kidneys are so efficient that she produces almost no urine. Watching her rest, you reflect on the remarkable partnership between humans and these creatures that makes trans-Saharan trade possible at all. Without camels, the Sahara would be an impermeable barrier. With them, it becomes a highway connecting civilizations. The ritual of midday tea begins as Abdullah, a soft-spoken trader from Tunis, produces his cherished tea service from a carefully wrapped bundle. The tiny glasses, no larger than your thumb, are works of art, clear crystal decorated with gold leaf and geometric patterns that catch and scatter the filtered light. The teapot itself is a marvel of practical engineering. Its long curved spout, designed to pour from a height that cools the liquid while creating the foam that marks properly prepared desert tea. First glass is bitter like life, Abdullah explains as he measures green tea leaves with the precision of an alchemist. Second glass is sweet like love. Third glass is gentle like death. This isn't casual refreshment, but ceremony, meditation, and medicine combined. The tea contains exactly the caffeine needed to maintain alertness during the afternoon heat, while the mint leaves provide cooling properties that help regulate body temperature. The sugar precious cubes transported from distant quick energy without the heaviness of food that would burden digestion in extreme heat. As the water boils over a small fire of dried camel dung, the only fuel available in this treeless landscape, the conversation turned to the philosophical topics that seem to emerge naturally during these enforced rest periods. Mahmoud speaks of the three types of knowledge: that which comes from books, that which comes from experience, and that which comes from the desert itself. Books tell us what was, he says, settling back against his saddle. Experience tells us what is, but the desert tells us what will be, if we know how to listen. You notice how the heat affects everything around you. Metal becomes too hot to touch with bare skin. The sand surface shimmers with waves of rising air that create the optical illusions called mirages, not fantasies, but real phenomena caused by light bending through layers of air at different temperatures. In the distance, what appears to be a lake might be the reflection of sky on superheated air, while objects that seem close can be miles away. The desert, you're learning, is a master of deception that demands constant humility from those who would cross it. The talk turns to navigation, and Amaya shares some of the secrets that keep caravans from becoming lost in this landscape, where every horizon looks identical. During the day, subtle variations in sand color indicate prevailing wind directions. The shapes of dunes follow predictable patterns that experienced guides can read like maps. At night, the stars provide obvious direction. But even the wind carries information. Its smell, temperature, and consistency tell stories about distant water sources, storms, and seasonal changes. Water management during these midday rests reveals itself as both science and art. Each person is allowed a precise amount for drinking, determined not by thirst but by careful calculation of remaining supplies, distance to the next source, and individual body size. Additional water is rationed for the essential ritual of washing hands and face, not luxury, but necessary hygiene that prevents the skin infections that can become life-threatening in this environment. You watch fascinated as Abdullah performs his abbreviated ablutions with perhaps 2 tablespoons of water, cleaning himself thoroughly through technique rather than quantity. The camels require their own midday care. Their feet are inspected for cuts or embedded thorns that could cause lameness. Their mouths are checked for sores from the rope bridles. Most importantly, their mood and energy levels are assessed by handlers, who can read the subtle signs of distress that might indicate illness or injury. A sick camel is indeed just an economic loss, but a potential disaster that could strand people in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments. As you rest in the relative coolness of shade, sipping your third ceremonial glass of tea, you contemplate the remarkable human adaptation that this way of life represents. These men have learned to thrive in conditions that would quickly kill the unprepared. Not through technology, but through knowledge, cooperation, and profound respect for natural forces. You wonder what lessons your old world might learn from this harmony between human ambition and environmental reality. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, painting the endless dunes in shades of amber and gold, the caravan stirs back to life with the unhurried purpose of desert veterans. The afternoon heat still radiates from the sand in visible waves, but there is a subtle shift in the air, a promise of the cooling that will make evening travel not just possible, but pleasant. You help fold the shelters with movements that are becoming automatic, your hands learning the efficient patterns that turn chaos into organized cargo within minutes. The camels seem to sense the approaching end of their rest period, rising to their feet with theatrical groans and complaints that echo across the temporary camp. Tala fixes you with what you swear is an accusatory stare, as if personally holding you responsible for the disruption of her afternoon siesta. She's developing opinions about you, observes Mahmoud with amusement, adjusting his own camel's load with practiced ease. That's either very good or very bad, depending on what those opinions are. The evening departure reveals a different rhythm than the morning's start, where dawn brought urgent preparation and the energy of new beginnings. Sunset carries the measured pace of experienced travelers settling into familiar routines. The light itself transforms everything, where the harsh noon sun bleached color from the landscape. The slanted evening rays bring out subtle variations in sand texture and hue that create an almost painted quality to the scenery around you. Your position in the caravan line gives you a perfect vantage point to observe the social dynamics that emerge during travel. Directly ahead rides Omar, a scholarly merchant from whose saddlebags contain not just trade goods, but carefully wrapped manuscript copies of works by Averroes and Avicenna that he plans to sell in Timbuktu's famous libraries. His presence reminds you that this is just a commercial expedition, but part of the vast network of intellectual exchange that connects the Islamic world from Spain to sub-Saharan Africa. Behind you, two young traders from Fez maintain a running conversation about the relative merits of different trade routes, their voices carrying the confidence of men who've read extensively about places they've never seen. Their theoretical knowledge, you notice, is both impressive and occasionally amusing to the older merchants who've actually walked these paths. Experience and education don't always align perfectly, but both have their place in the complex ecosystem of desert commerce. The camels themselves have settled into their traveling formation, a loose line that allows each animal to find its own best pace while maintaining visual contact with its neighbors. You've learned that forcing them into rigid formation is both unnecessary and counterproductive. Like many desert adaptations, their natural behavior is more efficient than human attempts at organization. Tala has found her preferred position, about 3 camel lengths behind Hakim, the large male she seems to favor, while maintaining careful distance from her apparent rival. As evening progresses into twilight, the desert reveals one of its most magical transformations. The temperature drops with startling speed once the sun disappears, and within an hour, you find yourself reaching for the wool cloak that seemed impossibly heavy during the day as heat. The sky explodes into colors that seem impossible, deep purples and oranges that paint the dunes in constantly shifting patterns of shadow and light. Stars begin to appear with a brilliance that makes you understand why desert peoples became such accomplished astronomers. Amayas calls for the evening halt at a spot that looks identical to everywhere else you've traveled, but his choice reveals the subtle expertise that separates accomplished guides from mere travelers. The location offers protection from prevailing winds, good drainage for the rare possibility of rain, and most importantly, the kind of firm ground that won't trap camels' feet or shift unexpectedly during the night. Within the seeming uniformity of desert landscape, experiments can read a dozen different factors that determine the success or failure of a camp. The process of establishing the evening camp unfolds with the same practiced efficiency you witnessed at midday, but on a larger scale. The camels are arranged in a protective circle with their loads forming a makeshift wall against wind and potential sandstorms. The center of this circle becomes a communal space where small cooking fires bloom like flowers in the gathering darkness. The smell of wood smoke, actually dried camel dung, the desert's most precious fuel, mixes with the aroma of dates, dried meat, and the ever-present mint tea. Your own evening duties have become routine, helping to hobble the camels so they cow and wander during the night, checking talus feet and legs for any signs of strain or injury, and contributing your share to the communal meal preparation. Tonight's dinner consists of hard biscuits, soft and mint tea, strips of dried goat meat, and handfuls of dates whose sweetness provides essential energy for tomorrow's travel. It's simple food, but perfectly adapted to the requirements of desert travel, light, non-perishable, and nutritionally complete. The social center of evening camp is the fire circle, where traders gather to share news, conduct business, and participate in the storytelling traditions that make these journeys memorable rather than merely endurable. Tonight, a trader from Marrakesh produces a small wooden flute and begins playing a melody, seems to capture the rhythm of camel steps and the whisper of wind across sand. The music is UNT performance, but participants join in with humming or quiet percussion made by tapping on water gourds. The flames of the evening fire dance against the star-filled darkness as the circle of traders settles into the ancient rhythm of desert storytelling. You find yourself positioned between Ibrahim, whose weathered face holds the memory of nearly 5 decades of these crossings, and young Youssef, whose eager questions remind everyone of their own first journey into the Sahara's heart. The fire crackles with dried camel dung that burns cleanly and without smoke, casting shifting shadows that make every face look mysterious and timeless. Tonight's storyteller is Hakim Al-Andalusi, a silver-bearded merchant from Granada, whose voice carries the musical cadences of a... His tale begins with a traditional formula. There was not, for only Allah knows the truth of what was and what will be, a time when the desert spoke directly to those who knew how to listen. The story he weaves is part history, part legend, telling of a caravan master who became lost in a sandstorm and found his way by following the ghost of a long-dead Tuareg guide whose spirit still roamed the trade routes. As Hakim speaks, you notice how the other traders contribute to the storytelling, not interrupting, but adding small confirmations, corrections, or embellishments that show how these tales exist as living, communal creations rather than fixed narratives. When he mentions the legendary oasis of Bir al-Gamal, 3 different voices murmur agreement, each having apparently visited this water source at different times. The stories aren't just entertainment, but practical education, embedding navigation, knowledge, and survival wisdom within memorable narratives. Your own contribution to the evening comes through your trading ledger, where you've been recording not just commercial transactions but observations about desert life that fascinate your new companions. Reading by firelight, you share your outsider-esque perspective on the remarkable adaptations you've witnessed, the way Tuareg women weave tent fabrics so tightly it can shed rain, yet breathe in heat, or how experienced camel handlers can diagnose illness by the subtle changes in an animal's gait. Your fresh eyes see wonders that familiarity has made invisible to lifetime desert dwellers. The conversation flows into more serious commercial matters as traders discuss market conditions and the political situation in various kingdoms along the trade routes, and the eternal concerns about security and weather. You learn that salt prices have risen in the southern markets due to disruptions in the coastal trade, while gold dust from the Bambouk region has become more available through new diplomatic agreements between local rulers. This information is uncasual gossip, but vital intelligence that will determine the success or failure of trading ventures. Mahmoud produces a small astrolabe from his personal Kita brass instrument engraved with Arabic numerals and geometric patterns that serves as both practical navigation tool and work of art. By the firelight, he demonstrates how to use the device to determine latitude by measuring the height of specific stars above the horizon. The desert may look empty, he explains, adjusting the instrument's movable parts, but it is full of invisible roads that have been mapped in the heavens since before our grandfathers. Grandfathers learned to walk upright. The mathematical precision required for celestial navigation impresses you deeply. These men, many of whom cannot read or write in the conventional sense, possess geometric and astronomical knowledge that rivals anything you've encountered. They can calculate distances, predict sunrise and sunset times, and determine their position on Earth's surface using nothing but observations of celestial movements. It's a reminder that different forms of intelligence and education can coexist, each valuable in its own context. As the evening progresses, the fire burns lower and conversations turn to more philosophical territories. Omar, the scholarly merchant from, speaks about the concept of baraka, the divine blessing that some places and people possess, which brings good fortune to those who encounter it. The desert itself, he suggests, has its own form of baraka that transforms those who cross it respectfully, but punishes those who approach it with arrogance or ignorance. You find yourself wondering if your own strange journey to this time and place might be connected to such mysterious forces. The night air carries sounds that are becoming familiar. The soft shuffling of hobbled camels moving to find better grazing, the distant calls of desert foxes, and the ever-present whisper of wind across sand. Occasionally, one of the camels will grunt or complain in its sleep, dreaming whatever dreams occupy the minds of creatures adapted to live between civilizations. The sounds create a natural soundtrack that makes the silence between conversations feel comfortable rather than empty. Your own role in these evening gatherings is evolving from observer to participant. The other traders have begun to ask your opinions on various matters, and you've discovered that your outsider's perspective sometimes offers insights that insider knowledge misses. When you suggest that certain trade goods might appeal to different markets than traditionally expected, the experienced merchants listen with interest, rather than dismissing your inexperience. The desert, it seems, teaches respect for all forms of useful knowledge. As the fire burns down to glowing coals and the conversations gradually quiet, you help bank the embers that will be rekindled for tomorrow's morning tea. The stars overhead are so numerous and bright that they seem close enough to touch, and you understand why desert peoples developed such sophisticated astronomical knowledge. In this environment, the heavens aren't distant decoration, but immediate, practical reality, a celestial map that guides every journey and marks every season. The deep desert night wraps around the camp like cool silk as the last conversations fade into whispers, and then into the profound silence that only exists far from civilization. You lie on your woven mat, wrapped in the wool cloak that seemed impossibly heavy during the day. Heat but now provides perfect insulation against the surprising cold. The temperature has dropped nearly 40 degrees since sunset, transforming the landscape from furnace to refrigerator with the desert's characteristic extremes. Above you, the Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, more brilliant and detailed than you ever imagined possible, without the light pollution of cities or towns. Every constellation stands out with crystalline clarity, and you begin to understand how ancient navigators could read their position in these celestial patterns. Amayas moves quietly through the camp, checking on animals and making the subtle adjustments that experienced caravan leaders perform throughout the night, tightening a rope here, repositioning a load there, ensuring that everything remains secure for tomorrow's travel. The decision to travel by night comes from practical necessity rather than romance. During summer months, daytime temperatures can reach lethal levels, even for desert-adapted travelers. While nighttime provides the cool conditions that allow both humans and animals to cover substantial distances without exhaustion, more importantly, the clear desert air and unobstructed horizons make celestial navigation not just possible, but remarkably precise. The stars that seem decorative in your old world become highway signs in this one. You're awakened from a light doze by the gentle sound of the camp stirring back to life. The night travel routine differs from daytime preparations. Movements are quieter, more deliberate, designed to maintain the peaceful rhythm that helps both people and animals conserve energy during long hours of walking. Small oil lamps appear throughout the camp, their flickering flames providing just enough light for necessary tasks without destroying the night vision essential for safe travel. The camels rise with their usual complaints, but their protests seem more subdued in the cool air. Tala nuzzles your shoulder as you approach with her bridle. A gesture of affection that Mahmoud claims indicates she's accepted you as her human partner. Camels choose their people, he explains, while checking his own animal's equipment. And once they decide, they're more loyal than most humans. But cross a camel who's chosen you, and you will regret it for the rest of your life, which might not be very long if you were foolish enough to mistreat her in the desert. The night caravan forms up with practiced efficiency, each trader taking his predetermined position in a line that stretches nearly half a mile across the moonlit landscape. Your place in this formation puts you close enough to the lead animals to benefit from Amaya's navigation expertise, but far enough back to avoid the responsibility of route finding. The position suits your current skill level perfectly, close enough to learn, distant enough to avoid making mistakes that could endanger others. As the caravan begins moving, you experience the strange magic of desert night travel for the first time. The cooling air feels like a blessing against your skin, and the steady rhythm of Tala's gait becomes almost hypnotic under the star-filled sky. Sounds carry differently in the night. Air conversations from other parts of the caravan drift back to you in fragments, mixing with the soft bells and the occasional grunt from the animals. The desert's daytime harshness transforms into something almost welcoming, as if the landscape reveals its gentler nature only to those willing to travel during its sleeping hours. Amaya's navigates using a combination of star positions, wind direction, and subtle landscape features that are invisible to inexperienced eyes. He points out how certain stars rise and set at predictable times and positions, creating a celestial clock that's more reliable than any mechanical timepiece. The North Star serves as a constant reference point, while the positions of other constellations indicate both direction and the passage of time throughout the night. The mathematics of celestial navigation fascinate you as Mahmoud shares some of the techniques during a brief rest stop. By measuring the angle between specific stars and the horizon using simple tools like his experienced navigators can determine their latitude with remarkable accuracy, combined with careful tracking of distance traveled and direction maintained. This creates a navigation system that has guided desert travelers for over 1,000 years. You wonder what your technologically dependent old world would do if suddenly forced to navigate using only the stars and accumulated wisdom. The social dynamics of night travel differ subtly from daytime interactions. Conversations are quieter, more contemplative, focused on topics that seem appropriate to the mysterious hours between sunset and dawn. Ibrahim shares stories of jinn and desert spirits not as superstition, but as cultural wisdom encoded in memorable narratives. Whether or not supernatural beings actually inhabit the desert, the stories contain practical advice about avoiding dangerous areas, recognizing signs of approaching weather, and maintaining the respectful attitude that helps travelers survive in harsh environments. Water discipline continues even in the cool night air, as dehydration remains a constant threat regardless of temperature. Your body loses moisture through breathing and perspiration, even when you don't feel thirsty. And the dry desert air wicks away water with invisible efficiency. The experienced traders sip from their water gourds at regular intervals, maintaining hydration through small, frequent drinks rather than waiting for the sensation of thirst that indicates dehydration has already begun. The first pale light of dawn reveals a transformation in the landscape that stops you mid-stride with wonder. During the night's travel, the caravan has reached the edge of the Great Tagaza Salt Flats of As. White expanse that stretches to the horizon like a frozen sea. What appeared as ordinary desert in the darkness now reveals itself as something almost otherworldly. Crystalline formations that catch the early light and throw it back in prismatic displays of color. The salt deposits here are so pure and extensive that they create their own a place where the usual rules of desert survival take on new dimensions. The salt mines of Tagaza represent one of the most remarkable human adaptations to extreme environments you've ever witnessed. The miners who work these deposits, mostly slaves from various southern kingdoms, have developed techniques for extracting, shaping, and preparing salt that have remained unchanged for centuries. Their work requires not just physical strength, but intimate knowledge of salt formation, crystalline structure, and the subtle differences between various grades of this precious commodity. Amayas leads the caravan to a designated area where salt traders conduct their business. A semi-permanent settlement of tents and lean-to shelters that serves as both market and social center for this isolated community. The contrast between the harsh working conditions and the sophisticated commercial activity fascinates you here. In one of Earth's most inhospitable locations, you witness negotiations conducted in multiple languages, complex financial arrangements involving credit and future delivery, and quality assessments that rival anything you might find in a metropolitan market. The salt extraction process itself is both art and science. The miners use simple tools, wooden mallets, bronze chisels, and rope to break apart the natural salt formations into standardized blocks. Each block must be roughly the same size and weight to ensure fair trading and efficient transport. But the process requires remarkable skill to avoid fractures that would reduce the salt's value. You watch fascinated as experienced workers can split a large salt formation into perfectly sized blocks with just a few well-placed blows, their movements economical and precise. The quality assessment of salt reveals layers of expertise you never imagined existed. The finest salt, pure white, with no prices in southern markets where it is used for food preservation and preparation. Salt with pink or gray veining has different applications and correspondingly different values. The coarsest grades serve industrial purposes like leather tanning and textile processing. Each grade requires different handling, packaging, and marketing approaches, creating a complex hierarchy of value within what appears to be a single commodity. Your role in the trading process involves careful documentation of every transaction. Your ledger records not just quantities and prices, but also quality grades, delivery conditions, and the intricate network of credit relationships that make such remote commerce possible. The salt purchased here might not be paid for until it reaches markets hundreds of miles away, creating financial arrangements that require extraordinary levels of trust and reliability among trading partners. The social structure of Tagaza reveals the harsh realities underlying this lucrative trade. The actual miners, those who perform the dangerous, exhausting work of salt extraction, are almost entirely enslaved people from various southern kingdoms, captured in raids or sold to pay debts. Their living conditions are brutal even by desert standards, and their life expectancy is tragically short. The wealth created by their labor flows primarily to merchants, caravan leaders, and the various political authorities who control access to the salt flats. This uncomfortable reality forces you to confront the moral complexities of the economic system you've become part of. The salt trade that seems so romantic from a distance depends on human suffering that is impossible to ignore when witnessed directly. The other traders in your caravan acknowledge this reality with varying degrees of acceptance, rationalization, and discomfort, but none seem prepared to abandon the system that provides their livelihood. You wonder how your own world would judge this arrangement, and whether modern economic systems really operate on fundamentally different moral foundations. The technical challenges of salt preservation during transport become apparent as you help prepare the newly acquired blocks for the journey south. Each piece must be wrapped in palm fiber matting to prevent moisture absorption, then secured with rope in configurations that distribute weight evenly across the camels' backs. The packaging process requires as much skill as the extraction. Since improperly protected salt can dissolve during the rare desert rainstorms or absorb enough atmospheric moisture to become unusable, water takes on even greater significance in this environment where every surface is covered with salt. The few available wells produce water so brackish that it requires careful treatment before consumption. The experienced traders know techniques for filtering and purifying this water using cloth, sand, and charcoal, but the process is time-consuming and never completely removes the mineral taste. Fresh water brought from outside sources becomes literally more precious than gold, in this place where gold is common currency. The economic calculations involved in salt trading reveal sophisticated mathematical thinking among people who might appear to outsiders as simple nomads. Profit margins must account for transport costs, animal maintenance, water procurement, guide fees, and various taxes and bribes required to cross different territorial boundaries. The traders carry this complex financial information in their heads, performing calculations that involve multiple currencies, fluctuating exchange rates, and risk assessments that would challenge modern business analysts. As evening approaches and the caravan prepares to leave Tagaza with its valuable cargo, you reflect on the human cost of the luxury goods that flow through trade networks connecting distant civilizations. The salt that will grace tables in Timbuktu and beyond carries with it the sweat and suffering of people whose names will never be recorded in any merchant's ledger yet, whose labor makes possible the very existence of these transcontinental commerce routes. The sky darkens with unnatural speed, transforming from brilliant blue to an ominous yellow-brown. That makes every experienced trader in the caravan stop their activities and look toward the northern horizon with expressions of grim recognition. The wind, which has been a gentle companion for days, suddenly shifts direction and begins to build with alarming intensity. Dust devils small whirlwinds that normally dance harmlessly across the desert floor multiply and grow larger, spinning columns of sand that reach toward the darkening sky like fingers grasping for something terrible. Habuba Mayas announces simply, using the Arabic word for the massive sandstorms that can engulf entire regions in walls of wind-driven particles. His voice carries no panic, but the immediate urgency in his movements communicates more than shouting could accomplish. Within moments, the entire caravan transforms from leisurely travel mode into emergency preparation. Every person and animal working with the coordinated efficiency that separates desert survivors from desert casualties. The approaching storm appears on the horizon as a brown wall that seems to stretch from earth to heaven, advancing with the inexorable power of a natural phenomenon that human technology cannot stop or deflect. You estimate its height at perhaps 1,000 feet, but Mahmoud corrects your assessment grimly. Much higher than that, my friend. This one reaches the clouds themselves. We have perhaps 20 minutes before it reaches us, and then we disappear into Allah's mercy for however long He wills it. The preparation for surviving a major sandstorm reveals survival techniques developed over centuries of desert travel. The camels are quickly arranged in a tight circle, their bodies creating a natural windbreak, then forced to kneel and face away from the approaching storm. Their loads are lashed down with additional ropes and covered with leather tarps that will protect both trade goods and essential supplies from the abrasive sand that can destroy anything left exposed. Your own preparation involves wrapping yourself in layers of cloth, until only your eyes remain visible. Then soaking your head wrap with precious water to create a barrier that sand cannot penetrate. The experienced traders move through this process with mechanical precision, their movements economical and automatic. Breathe through your nose only, Ibrahim instructs as he helps you adjust your protective wrapping. And keep your mouth closed, no matter what happens. The sand will try to get inside. You don't let it. Tala seems to understand the approaching danger instinctively, settling into a protected position between two larger camels with her head tucked low and her eyes nearly closed. The animal's natural responses to sandstorms have been refined through thousands of years of evolution. They know to minimize exposed surface area, protect their breathing passages, and remain motionless until the danger. Watching them prepare, you realize that human survival in this environment depends entirely on learning from and cooperating with these remarkable creatures. The first edge of the storm hits with stunning violence, transforming day into night within seconds. The wind, which moments before was merely strong, becomes a screaming force that makes communication impossible, except through touch and gesture. Sand fills the air so completely that visibility drops to zero. You cannot see your own hand extended in front of your face, cannot distinguish between earth and sky, cannot determine direction or distance, or any of the visual references that normally orient human consciousness. The sound of the storm is unlike anything in your experience, not the howling of wind through trees or buildings, but a constant, grinding roar that seems to come from everywhere at once. Sand particles strike exposed skin like tiny needles, finding every gap in clothing and every inadequately protected opening. The air itself becomes solid, a thick, choking medium that requires constant effort to breathe and makes every movement feel like swimming through liquid sandpaper. Time loses meaning in the complete sensory deprivation of the storm's center. Minutes feel like hours, and you begin to understand how travelers can become completely disoriented. Even when surrounded by their companions and animals, the psychological challenge matches the physical one, maintaining mental equilibrium. When every sense confirms that you've been swallowed by an alien, hostile environment that seems determined to strip away your humanity grain by grain, the camels remain remarkably calm throughout the ordeal. Their breathing steady and their bodies relaxed despite the chaos surrounding them. Their example provides essential psychological anchoring for the human members of the caravan. If these animals, perfectly adapted to desert life, show no signs of panic, then survival is possible through patience and proper preparation. You press close to Tala's warm flank, drawing comfort from her steady presence in the midst of natural fury. Navigation becomes impossible during the storm's peak intensity. Compass directions mean nothing when you cannot see landmarks, determine wind direction, or maintain any sense of forward progress. The experienced guides know that attempting to travel during such conditions leads inevitably to becoming lost, separated from the group, or walking in circles until exhaustion and dehydration claim their victims. The only safe strategy is complete immobility until the storm passes, however long that might take. Water conservation takes on desperate urgency as the storm continues. The dry wind and sand-filled air accelerate dehydration, while the physical stress of breathing through protective cloth increases the body's water requirements. Every sip must be carefully measured against unknown duration. The storm might last minutes, hours, or in extreme cases, days. You learn to wet your lips with tiny amounts of water rather than drinking, preserving precious liquid while maintaining just enough moisture to prevent dangerous dehydration. As suddenly as it began, the storm starts to weaken the grinding roar, gradually diminishing to a mere howl, then to strong wind, and finally to the gentle breeze that seems like silence after the auditory assaults of the sandstorm's peak. The air slowly clears, revealing a landscape transformed by the passage of millions of tons of relocated sand. Dunes have shifted, familiar landmarks have disappeared, and the entire desert floor shows the rippled patterns created by hours of wind-driven particle movement. The aftermath of the sandstorm reveals a world transformed and reborn. As the last wisps of airborne sand settle and the sun emerges from behind the dissipating dust clouds, you witness one of the desert's most magical phenomena, the appearance of an oasis that seemed to materialize from nothing, as if the storm itself had scraped away concealing sand to reveal the precious water source beneath. Bir Salama, the well of the Mother of Peace, shimmers in the distance like a jewel set in golden sand, its date palms forming a dark green smudge against the endless beige of the surrounding landscape. The caravan's approach to this life-saving oasis follows protocols developed over centuries of desert travel. Amaya sends scouts ahead to ensure the water source remains clean and while the main body of traders and animals maintains a respectful distance until the all-clear signal arrives. Even in desperate thirst, experienced desert travelers know that rushing to water sources can lead to contamination, conflict with other travelers, or dangerous overconsumption that can be as deadly as dehydration itself. The oasis proves to be more than just a water source. It's a complete ecosystem, thriving in microcosmic defiance of the surrounding aridity. Date palms provide shade and fruit, their deep roots tapping into underground water sources that lie far below the reach of surface evaporation. Beneath the palms grow smaller trees and shrubs that create multiple layers of vegetation, each level supporting different forms of life. The sound of actual running water, not just the still surface of a desert, but flowing, bubbling, living water seems almost supernatural after days of endless silence and dryness. Your first drink from the oasis spring tastes like nothing you've ever experienced in your old world. It's not just the relief of hydration after dangerous thirst, but water that carries the mineral essence of deep earth, filtered through layers of rock and sand over geological time periods. The taste is clean but complex, slightly sweet with traces of iron and other minerals that your body craves after days of water rationing. Mahmoud watches with amusement as you drink with obvious rapture. First, oasis water always tastes like paradise to newcomers. By your 10th crossing, you'll be a connoisseur of wells and springs from here to Timbuktu. The ritual of water blessing begins as soon as the caravan is granted access to the precious resource. Amayas performs the traditional prayers of gratitude that acknowledge both divine providence and the human cooperation that makes oasis sharing possible among different groups of travelers. These ceremonies are unjust religious observance, but practical diplomacy. They establish the respectful relationships that prevent conflicts over water rights in an environment where such disputes can become matters of life and death. The Camels' reaction to reaching the oasis provides a masterclass in desert survival psychology. Despite their obvious thirst and the availability of unlimited water, the experienced animals drink slowly and deliberately, never consuming more than their bodies can efficiently process. Their measured approach contrasts sharply with the behavior you might expect from severely dehydrated creatures, but their restraint demonstrates the wisdom bred into animals that have evolved alongside human desert travelers for thousands of years. Tala allows you to guide her to the water's edge, where she drinks with the careful rhythm that you're learning to recognize as optimal hydration technique. Between drinks, she raises her head to scan the surrounding area, her large eyes alert for any signs of danger or competition. Her trust in allowing you to remain close during this vulnerable activity represents a significant development in your partnership in the desert. Animals rarely let their guard down around anyone they don't completely trust. The oasis serves as an unofficial post office and news exchange for the trans-Saharan trade network. Previous travelers have left messages carved into palm trunks, written on pieces of bark, or simply recorded in the memories of local guides who semi-permanently inhabit this crucial way station. You learn that another large caravan passed through just 3 days ahead of your group, while a smaller trading party heading north encountered difficulties with tribal conflicts near the Malian border. The social dynamics around the oasis reveal the complex etiquette that governs water sharing in desert cultures. Different groups of travelers maintain discreet camping areas while sharing the actual water source according to carefully negotiated schedules. Priority goes to those with the greatest need, followed by considerations of group size, animal requirements, and the diplomatic relationships between various caravan leaders. Watching these negotiations, you realize you're witnessing international diplomacy conducted at the most fundamental level, people from different cultures, languages, and kingdoms working out agreements essential for mutual survival. The abundant water allows for the luxury of comprehensive personal hygiene for the first time since leaving sea. The experienced traders know how to perform thorough ablutions using minimal water. But the oasis permits the kind of washing that's both practical necessity and profound psychological relief. You join the other men in the ritual cleaning that's part religious requirement, part medical necessity, and part simple human pleasure after days of accumulated desert dust and grime. Evening camp at the oasis takes on a festive quality despite the exhaustion from surviving the sandstorm. The availability of unlimited water means hot meals cooked with ingredients that require moisture-dried vegetables that can be rehydrated, grains that can be properly prepared, and mostly tea brewed with generous amounts of water rather than the carefully rationed portions that mark desert travel. The psychological effect of this abundance shouldn't be underestimated. Water security transforms the entire emotional atmosphere of the camp. The plant life around the oasis provides opportunities for foraging that supplement the caravan's dried provisions. Date palms obviously provide their sweet, energy-rich fruit, but experienced desert travelers know how to identify and prepare numerous other plants that grow only in these favored locations. Some provide medicinal benefits for treating the minor ailments that accumulate during long journeys, while others offer nutritional variety that helps prevent the deficiency diseases that can affect travelers subsisting limited diets. As night falls and the temperature drops to comfortable levels, you reflect on the remarkable human adaptation that allows people not just to survive, but to thrive in one of Earth's most challenging environments. The oasis represents more than just water. It's a symbol of the cooperation, knowledge, and respect for natural forces that make civilization possible, even in the most unlikely places. The morning sun rises over the oasis with renewed promise as the caravan prepares to leave this sanctuary for the final leg of the journey toward Timbuktu. Your water containers, every gourd, leather bottle, and ceramic vessel, have been filled to capacity with the precious liquid that will sustain life through the remaining days of desert travel. The weight of this additional cargo slows the camels slightly, but their movements show the renewed energy that comes from proper hydration and a night's rest in relative comfort. 3 days beyond the oasis, the landscape begins to show subtle signs that you're approaching the edge of the Great Desert. The sand becomes less uniform, mixed with patches of harder ground and occasional outcroppings of dark rock that provide navigation landmarks for experienced guides. More importantly, you begin to encounter other travelers with increasing frequency, small groups heading north with trade goods from the southern kingdom's individual messengers, carrying letters and news between cities, and even the occasional nomadic family moving their herds according to seasonal patterns of water and grazing. The trading post of Arwan appears on the horizon like a mirage that refuses to disappear as you approach. This semi-permanent settlement serves as the last major commercial center before Timbuktu, a place where northern and southern trade networks converge in a marketplace that operates according to its own unique customs and regulations. The settlement consists of several dozen mud brick buildings arranged around a central courtyard, with temporary tent camps extending in all directions to accommodate the constant flow of travelers and merchants. Your arrival at Arwan triggers the complex commercial negotiations that will determine the success or failure of your trading venture. The salt slabs that have been your primary cargo throughout the desert crossing must now be priced and either sold immediately or transported onward to Timbuktu's markets. The decision involves calculating transport costs against potential price differences, assessing current market conditions, and evaluating the risks of continued travel with valuable but heavy cargo. The marketplace itself operates in 3 languages. Simultaneously, Arabic serves as the lingua franca for most commercial transactions. Tamashek facilitates communication with Tuareg traders and guides, while Songhai represents the growing influence of the southern kingdoms that control access to gold and other precious commodities. Your own linguistic abilities, developed through weeks of travel with multilingual companions, allow you to follow basic negotiations, though the subtle nuances of commercial diplomacy often escape your understanding. The quality assessment of salt in this sophisticated market reveals standards more precise than anything you witnessed at the extraction sites. Buyers examine each slab for color uniformity, crystal structure, and the absence of impurities that could affect taste or preservation properties. The finest salt, pure white, with perfect crystalline formation, commands prices nearly 3 times higher than the coarser grades, suitable only for industrial applications. Your trading ledger records transactions that turn chunks of mineral into weights of gold, dust with an almost alchemical transformation. The social hierarchy of the marketplace reflects the complex cultural dynamics of trans-Saharan trade. Arab merchants from North African cities occupy the highest commercial positions, their literacy and mathematical skills providing advantages in complex financial transactions. Tuareg traders serve as essential intermediaries, their knowledge of desert routes and tribal relationships making them indispensable despite their generally lower economic status. Local African merchants control access to southern goods, particularly the gold and ivory that make these long journeys profitable for northern traders. Your role in the negotiations involves careful documentation of every transaction while observing the subtle signs that indicate successful bargaining versus exploitation. The experienced merchants in your caravan serve as explaining the difference between acceptable profit margins and the kind of aggressive pricing that can destroy long-term trading relationships. In this interconnected commercial network, reputation matters more than immediate profit, and traders who gain reputations for unfairness find themselves excluded from future opportunities. The accommodation facilities at R1 provide the first taste of urban comfort you've experienced since leaving. The merchant houses offer actual beds rather than sleeping mats, meals prepared with fresh ingredients rather than preserved provisions, and most luxuriously, private spaces for personal hygiene and rest. The psychological impact of these comforts shouldn't be underestimated. They provide essential recovery time that prepares travelers for either the final push to Timbuktu or the return journey across the desert. Evening entertainment in the trading post includes professional storytellers, musicians, and news bearers who provide information about political developments, market conditions, and travel safety throughout the region. These entertainers are merely providing diversion but serving essential communication functions in a world where written news travels slowly and official information channels are often unreliable. A skilled storyteller can embed crucial intelligence about bandits, political conflicts, or commercial opportunities within entertaining narratives that ensure the information spreads rapidly through trading networks. The commercial calculations involved in deciding whether to continue to Timbuktu or sell immediately at R1 require sophisticated risk assessment. Continuing south promises higher prices for salt but involves additional transport costs, the risk of market saturation if other caravans arrive simultaneously, and the dangers of travel through territories where political situations can change rapidly. Selling immediately guarantees profit, but potentially sacrifices the higher returns that justify the risks of trans-Saharan trading. Your own trading ledger has evolved into something more complex than simple commercial The entries now include detailed observations about market conditions, political developments, cultural practices, and the intricate web of personal relationships that underlies successful desert commerce. Reading through your notes, you realize you've been unconsciously documenting a complete economic and social system that operates according to principles both ancient and surprisingly sophisticated. The decision-making process reveals the collective wisdom that successful caravans develop over time. Rather than allowing individual traders to make purely personal choices, the group engages in extensive consultation that considers the interests of all participants. Emmaus facilitates these discussions with the diplomatic skills that separate true caravan leaders from mere guides, ensuring that collective decisions serve both individual profit motives and group solidarity. As negotiations continue into the evening, you reflect on the remarkable transformation you've undergone during this journey. What began as an impossible time travel adventure has become an education in human adaptation, commercial cooperation, and the ways that different cultures can work together despite vast differences in language, religion, and social organization. The gates of Timbuktu rise before you like a vision from the tales of Arabian Nights, but the reality proves far more magnificent than any story could convey. The great city stretches along the banks of the Niger River, its mud brick buildings rising in terraces that climb from the water's edge toward the desert's embrace. Minarets pierce the sky at regular intervals, their calls to prayer creating a musical backdrop to the constant hum of commerce that never ceases in this crossroads of civilizations. The very air seems to vibrate with the energy of a place where gold, salt, ideas, and dreams converge from across the known world. Your approach to the city follows the ancient protocols that govern caravan arrival. Emmaus leads the procession to the designated staging area outside the main gates, where a complex registration process begins. Officials representing various authorities, the city administration, the merchant guilds, and the religious establishment conduct inspections that are part taxation, part security screening, and part diplomatic greeting. Your trading ledger becomes a crucial document as officials assess the value of your cargo and calculate the fees required for market access. The cultural diversity of Timbuktu reveals itself immediately in the marketplace crowds. Tuareg traders in indigo robes mingle with Songhai merchants in colorful textiles, while Arab scholars in white turbans discuss theology with local African intellectuals wearing elaborate headdrops. The languages you hear include Arabic, Songhai, Fulfulde, Tamashek, and dialects you cannot identify, creating a linguistic symphony that reflects the city's role as a meeting point for multiple civilizations. The salt market operates with a sophistication that rivals anything you might find in Cairo or Damascus. Your precious cargo, carefully transported across hundreds of miles of desert, now undergoes final quality assessment by buyers, whose expertise has been refined through generations of evaluating this crucial commodity. The finest salt slabs, those pure white blocks with perfect crystalline structure, command prices that transform desert minerals into substantial wealth. Your trading ledger records transactions that represent the successful completion of one of the world's most challenging commercial ventures. The famous libraries of Timbuktu provide a striking contrast to the commercial bustle of the markets. The Sankar University and its associated scholarly institutions house hundreds of thousands of manuscripts covering subjects from astronomy and mathematics, Islamic jurisprudence, and local history. Omad, your scholarly companion, from conducts his own negotiations here, trading rare texts brought from Al-Andalus for unique African works that will eventually find their way to libraries throughout the Islamic world. The gold market operates with discretion and security measures that reflect the precious nature of the commodity being traded. The gold dust and small nuggets that flow north from the Bambuk region arrive under heavy guard and change hands through transactions that involve complex weighing, testing, and verification procedures. Your salt profits can be converted into gold at exchange rates that fluctuate based on supply, demand, and the political stability of the various kingdoms that control the mining regions. The social stratification of Timbuktu reflects the complex cultural mixing that defines the city. At the top of the hierarchy are the established merchant families who control the most lucrative trade routes and maintain connections throughout North and West Africa. Below them are the skilled artisans, religious scholars, and successful traders who form the city's middle class. The bottom tier includes various service workers, recent arrivals seeking opportunities, and sadly, the enslaved people whose labor supports much of the city's prosperity. Your accommodation in Timbuktu provides the first taste of urban luxury you've experienced since this journey began. The merchant house where you stay features actual furniture, private sleeping rooms, and meals prepared with fresh ingredients rather than preserved provisions. The psychological impact of these comforts extends beyond mere physical relief. They represent a return to the complexity and sophistication of urban civilization after weeks of desert simplicity. The evening entertainment in Timbuktu includes professional griots, traditional storytellers and musicians whose performances preserve and transmit the oral history of West African cultures. Their songs and tales provide more than entertainment. They serve as living libraries that maintain cultural knowledge, political commentary, and social cohesion across generations. Listening to these performances, you realize you're witnessing educational and artistic traditions that parallel the written scholarship of the Islamic world, but operate through entirely different methods. The religious diversity of Timbuktu challenges simple assumptions about medieval African societies. While Islam provides the dominant framework for law, education, and commercial practice, local traditions continue to influence everything from architectural styles to artistic expression. The city's mosques incorporate design elements that reflect both Arabic traditions and indigenous African aesthetics, creating a unique architectural synthesis that couldn't exist anywhere else in the world. The commercial networks that converge in Timbuktu extend far beyond the simple exchange of salt for gold. Traders bring ivory from the forest regions, kola nuts from the southern kingdoms, copper from mines in the Sahel, and manufactured goods from North African cities. These commodities flow through Timbuktu toward destinations throughout Africa and the Mediterranean world, creating economic relationships that span continents and connect cultures that might otherwise remain isolated from each other. Your trading calculations in Timbuktu involve converting desert hardships into urban profits through mathematical precision. That would impress scholars in any medieval university. The salt that costs you weeks of difficult travel now generates returns that justify the risks and expenses of trans-Saharan commerce. Your ledger records transactions that represent successful completion of one of the world's most challenging trading ventures, transforming you from adventurous newcomer into experienced desert merchant. The preparation for departure from Timbuktu involves acquiring new trade goods for the return journey. Gold dust and nuggets represent the most valuable cargo, but their transport requires special security measures and additional guards. Ivory tusks provide substantial profit margins, but add considerable weight to the caravan. Kola nuts, prized throughout North Africa for their medicinal properties, offer excellent profit potential, but require careful handling to prevent spoilage during the long desert crossing. As you prepare to leave this remarkable city, you reflect on the extraordinary human achievement that Timbuktu represents. Here, at the edge of the Sahara Desert, African societies have created an urban center that rivals any city in the medieval world for its scholarship, commerce, and cultural sophistication. The departure from Timbuktu carries a weight of finality that transforms the familiar rhythm of caravan preparation into something more profound. A conscious crossing of the threshold between urban civilization and the vast emptiness that will define the next stage of your journey. Your saddlebags now contain the fruits of successful trading. Carefully wrapped gold dust in leather pouches, small but valuable ivory carvings, and letters of credit that represent wealth accumulated through weeks of desert commerce. The return journey promises different challenges, different rewards, and the particular satisfaction that comes from completing one of the world's most demanding commercial ventures. The new composition of your caravan reflects the success of the southward journey. Several traders who arrived with minimal resources now travel with substantial wealth, while others have chosen to remain in Timbuktu to pursue local opportunities. Your group has acquired additional members merchants from the southern kingdoms who seek to establish connections with North African markets, and scholars carrying manuscripts that will enrich libraries from Fez to Cairo. The mix of languages and cultures has become even more complex, creating a traveling community that represents the best of trans-Saharan cultural exchange. The Camels, too, show the effects of their time in the city. They've been fed better fodder than desert travel normally provides, received veterinary care from Timbuktu's experienced animal handlers, and had their equipment repaired or replaced by the city's skilled craftsmen. Tala greets you with what you swear is genuine affection, nuzzling your shoulder with a familiarity that speaks to the bond developed during weeks of shared hardship and mutual dependence. Her renewed energy and improved condition promise better progress during the challenging return crossing. The economic dynamics of the return journey differ significantly from the southward trip, where the outbound caravan carried bulky, relatively low-value salt. The return cargo consists of high-value, compact goods that require different security measures and risk calculations. Gold dust in particular demands constant vigilance. Its concentration of value makes it attractive to bandits, while its physical properties require special handling to prevent loss through spillage or theft. Your role has evolved from simple trader to custodian of substantial wealth, a responsibility that brings both pride and anxiety. The route selection for the return journey involves different considerations than the southward crossing. Amayas chooses paths that prioritize security over speed, avoiding areas where recent political conflicts have created bandit problems, while ensuring access to reliable water sources. The trade-off between distance and safety becomes more critical when carrying valuable cargo that could attract unwanted attention from both human predators and the various political authorities who control different sections of the desert routes. The social dynamics within the caravan have evolved as well. The successful completion of the southward journey has created bonds of mutual respect and shared experience that transcend the cultural and linguistic differences that initially separated group members. You find yourself participating in conversations as an equal rather than an observer. Your opinions sought on matters ranging from route selection to commercial strategy. The transformation from newcomer to valued team member represents one of the most satisfying aspects of your desert education. The navigation challenges of the return journey require different skills than the southward crossing. The landmarks that guided your initial desert entry now appear from unfamiliar angles, while seasonal changes have altered the appearance of key reference points. Amayas demonstrates the superior expertise that separates master guides from mere travelers, reading subtle environmental signs that remain invisible to less experienced eyes. His ability to maintain accurate course while avoiding dangerous areas confirms the wisdom of investing in truly skilled leadership for such challenging ventures. The water management protocols remain as critical as ever, but your understanding of desert hydration has deepened through direct experience. You've learned to read the subtle signs of dehydration in both humans and animals, to recognize the difference between genuine thirst and psychological craving for water, and to maintain optimal hydration through small, frequent drinks rather than the large consumption that inexperienced travelers attempt. These skills, hard-won through weeks of desert travel, will serve you well during the return crossing. The evening camps during the return journey take on a different character than the southward travel. The combination of successful trading, accumulated wealth, and proven competence creates a more relaxed atmosphere among the caravan members. Stories shared around the evening fires now include your own experiences and your observations about the cultural differences between your original world and this medieval African society generate genuine interest rather than polite tolerance. You've become a full participant in the ancient tradition of desert storytelling. The philosophical reflections that emerge during long hours of travel focus increasingly on the nature of wealth, success, and the meaning of commercial achievement. The gold dust in your saddlebags represents more than mere profit. It embodies the successful completion of one of humanity's most challenging trading ventures, the transformation of desert hardships into urban luxuries, and proof of your ability to adapt to and succeed within a completely foreign cultural system. Yet the wealth feels different from any material success you might have achieved in your original world, carrying with it the weight of human relationships and shared experiences that pure financial gain cannot provide. The return journey also offers opportunities for deeper cultural observation as you travel through the same landscapes with eyes educated by experience. Details that escaped your notice during the southward crossing now reveal their significance. The subtle variations in sand color that indicate different geological formations, the patterns of vegetation that mark seasonal water sources, and the traces of previous travelers that create an invisible network of paths across the seemingly empty desert. Your understanding of this environment has progressed from anxiety to genuine appreciation for its complex beauty and the human adaptations it has fought. As the caravan settles into the rhythm of northward travel, you realize that the return journey represents more than simply retracing your steps. It is a victory lap that celebrates successful completion of one of the world's most demanding commercial ventures, a chance to savor the satisfaction of risks taken and challenges overcome, and an opportunity to consolidate the knowledge and relationships that have transformed you from curious outsider into accomplished desert trader. The familiar skyline of Sigil Masa emerges from the heat shimmer like a beloved friend, returning after long absence, but your eyes now see the great trading city with the enhanced perspective of someone who has crossed the Sahara and lived to tell the tale. The mud brick walls that once seemed merely functional now appear as the crucial infrastructure that makes trans-Saharan commerce possible. Protection, storage, and social organization combined in architectural form that has evolved over centuries of desert trading. The sight stirs emotions you hadn't expected: pride, accomplishment, and a strange nostalgia for the simplicity of desert life that will soon be replaced by urban complexity. Your triumphant return to civilization brings practical challenges that success creates. The gold dust and ivory in your possession must be converted into more conventional forms of wealth, stored securely, or invested in new commercial ventures. The letters of credit require validation and collection from the banking houses that serve the international merchant community. Most importantly, the knowledge and relationships you've developed during the desert crossing must be cultivated and maintained for future trading opportunities. Success in trans-Saharan commerce depends as much on ongoing relationships as on individual transactions. The reunion with merchants who remained in sea, perspective on the transformation you've undergone during the desert crossing. Their greetings carry new respect as they recognize the subtle signs that mark successful desert traders: the confident posture, the economy of movement in desert heat, and most tellingly, the casual competence with which you handle the camels and equipment that once seemed impossibly exotic. You've joined the exclusive fraternity of those who have crossed the Great Desert and emerged with both profit and wisdom. The commercial calculations involved in concluding your trading venture reveal the mathematics that make trans-Saharan commerce worthwhile, despite its extraordinary risks and challenges. The salt purchased with modest investment in Sigil Masa has been transformed through successful trading into gold and ivory worth several times the original outlay. The profit margins justify the months of difficult travel, the risks to life and health, and the substantial expenses of guides, animals, and equipment. Your trading ledger records the successful completion of one of medieval commerce's most challenging ventures. The social reintegration into urban life requires psychological adjustments that match the physical adaptations to city living. After weeks of sleeping on sand under open sky, beds feel oddly confined. The constant noise of urban activity seems overwhelming after the profound silence of desert nights. Most challenging of all, the complex social hierarchies and cultural protocols of city life feel artificial compared to the straightforward relationships forged through shared hardship in the desert. You find yourself missing the clarity and simplicity of survival-focused existence. The evening gatherings in Sigil Masa's merchant houses provide venues for sharing the stories and intelligence gathered during your desert crossing. Your first-hand observations about market conditions in Timbuktu, political developments in the southern kingdoms, and the status of various trade routes carry commercial value that extends beyond mere entertainment. In the information-hungry world of medieval commerce, reliable intelligence about distant markets represents a valuable commodity that successful traders cultivate and share strategically. The preparation for your next commercial venture begins almost immediately upon your return. The profits from the completed journey provide capital for larger and more ambitious trading expeditions. While the experience and relationships developed during the desert, crossing open opportunities that were previously inaccessible, Amias approaches you with proposals for participation in future caravans. Recognizing your proven competence and the valuable perspective you bring as someone who bridges different cultural traditions, the religious observances marking successful completion of the Hajj-like journey to Timbuktu include prayers of thanksgiving and charitable donations that acknowledge both divine protection and social obligation. The Islamic tradition of sharing commercial success with the less fortunate is eon custom but practical wisdom that maintains the social stability necessary for continued trade. Your contributions to local mosques and charitable institutions represent both spiritual obligation and investment in the community infrastructure that supports commercial activity. The correspondence you compose for delivery to various destinations throughout North Africa and beyond serves multiple purposes, beyond simple personal communication. Letters to merchant contacts in other cities provide market intelligence and maintain the commercial relationships essential for long-distance trade. Messages to family members or, in your unique case, to whatever mysterious forces brought you to this time. And place record experiences that seem too extraordinary to believe, yet too vivid to dismiss as dreams. The planning for potential future desert crossings involves careful analysis of seasonal patterns, political developments, and market trends that determine the optimal timing for commercial ventures. The trans-Saharan trade operates according to rhythms that coordinate weather patterns, agricultural cycles, and political stability across multiple kingdoms and cultural regions. Successful traders learn to read these complex patterns and time their expeditions to maximize both safety and profit potential. The educational value of your desert experience extends beyond commercial knowledge to include insights about human nature, cultural adaptation, and the ways that extreme environments shape both individual character and social organization. The lessons learned through direct experience of one of humanity's most challenging environments provide perspectives that no amount of reading or theoretical study could duplicate. You've gained understanding of how different cultures solve similar problems and the universal human capacity for adaptation and cooperation. The reflection on your extraordinary journey brings awareness of how profoundly the experience has changed your understanding of human capability and cultural diversity. The medieval African societies you've encountered display levels of sophistication, organization, and intellectual achievement that challenge any assumptions about historical or cultural superiority. The commercial networks spanning the Sahara represent human cooperation on a scale that rivals modern international trade. accomplished through personal relationships and cultural understanding rather than technological infrastructure. As evening approaches and you settle into the comfortable accommodations that wealth and success have made possible, you contemplate the remarkable chain of events that brought you from impossible time travel to accomplished desert merchant. The gold in your strongbox represents more than profit. It embodies proof of human adaptability, the rewards of cultural openness, and the extraordinary possibilities that emerge when people from different worlds learn to work together toward common goals. The final dawn of your desert trading adventure arrives with the gentle warmth that marks the beginning of another day in the cycle that has governed your existence for these transformative weeks. But this morning carries different energy: the satisfaction of completion, the weight of accumulated wisdom, and the strange melancholy that accompanies the end of extraordinary experiences. Your preparations for departure from Sigil Masa involve not just the practical arrangements of successful merchants, but the deeper process of consolidating lessons learned and relationships forged during one of history's most challenging commercial ventures. The accounting of your trading success requires both mathematical precision and philosophical reflection. Your ledger records profits that exceed your most optimistic projections. The salt purchased with modest investment has been transformed through successful desert commerce into gold, ivory, and commercial relationships worth many times the original outlay. But the true wealth accumulated during this journey extends far beyond material gain to include knowledge, experience, and personal transformation that cannot be quantified in any merchant's records. The morning market activities in Sigil Masa provide final opportunities to observe the commercial networks that connect this desert gateway to trading centers throughout the known world. Goods from your successful Timbuktu venture mix with merchandise from dozens of other sources: textiles from Cairo, metalwork from Damascus, spices from distant Asian markets brought westward through established Islamic trade routes. Your desert crossing has made you part of this vast commercial web that spans continents and connects cultures through the universal language of mutually beneficial exchange. Talus farewell carries emotional weight that surprises you with its intensity. The camel who carried you safely across hundreds of miles of hostile desert, who provided warmth during cold nights and patient companionship during long days of travel, deserves recognition as more than mere transportation. Her steady reliability and gradual acceptance of your partnership represent one of the most meaningful relationships of your entire desert experience. Mahmoud promises that she will be well cared for and possibly made available for your future expeditions, should you choose to undertake them. The geographical perspective gained through crossing the Sahara provides understanding of Africa that no map or written description could convey. You've experienced firsthand the remarkable diversity of environments within what outsiders might consider a uniform desert, from the salt flats of Tagaza to the river-fed prosperity of Timbuktu, from the harsh beauty of endless dunes to the life-giving miracles of oasis communities. This direct knowledge transforms abstract geographical concepts into lived reality that will inform your understanding for the rest of your life. The cultural synthesis you've achieved through months of immersion in medieval African and Islamic societies represents education of the highest order. You've learned to navigate complex social hierarchies, conduct business across language barriers, and participate respectfully in religious and cultural practices that were once completely foreign. The adaptability and cultural sensitivity developed through this experience demonstrate human capacity for learning and growth that transcends the boundaries of time, place, and cultural background. The network of relationships established during your desert crossing extends far beyond simple commercial contacts to include genuine friendships that bridge cultural differences through shared experience and mutual respect. Amayas Mahmoud Ibrahim and the other merchants who welcomed you into their dangerous but rewarding profession have provided mentorship, protection, and companionship that transformed a potentially lonely adventure into a rich community experience. These relationships represent treasure more valuable than gold, human connections that enrich life in ways that material wealth cannot duplicate. The practical knowledge accumulated through direct desert experience includes skills that few people in any era have had opportunity to develop. You can now read weather patterns in cloud formations and wind direction, navigate by star positions, assess water quality and manage hydration in extreme conditions, handle and care for camels, conduct commercial negotiations in multiple languages, and survive comfortably in one of Earth's most challenging environments. These abilities mark you as someone who has achieved genuine competence in one of humanity's most demanding environments. The philosophical insights gained through confronting the extremes of desert travel include deeper understanding of human resilience, the importance of cooperation over competition, and the ways that challenging environments can reveal both individual character and collective wisdom. The desert strips away pretense and forces confrontation with fundamental questions about survival, meaning, and the relationships between humans and the natural world. The answers you've discovered through direct experience provide perspective that will inform all future challenges and opportunities. The historical consciousness developed through living within medieval African society's challenges, modern assumptions about progress, civilization, and cultural development, the sophistication of trans-Saharan commercial networks, the intellectual achievements of centers like Timbuktu, and the social adaptations that make desert life possible demonstrate that human ingenuity and cultural complexity have manifested in diverse forms throughout history. This awareness provides humility and appreciation for the full spectrum of human achievement across different times and places. The final preparations for departure from this extraordinary chapter of your life involve careful preservation of the physical artifacts that will serve as tangible reminders of experiences that might otherwise seem like impossible dreams. Your trading ledger, with its detailed records of transactions and observations, provides documentation of successful participation in one of history's most challenging commercial ventures. The gold and ivory in your possession offer proof of material success, while the cultural knowledge and personal growth represent treasures that cannot be measured or traded. As you prepare to leave Sisilmasa and somehow return to your original time and place, you reflect on the remarkable privilege of experiencing firsthand one of history's great trading adventures. The transformation from curious outsider to accomplished desert merchant demonstrates human adaptability and the universal possibilities that emerge when people approach different cultures with openness, respect, and willingness to learn. The lessons of the Sahara will remain with you always, informing your understanding of human capability and the endless potential for growth through embracing new challenges and unfamiliar experiences. The gentle evening breeze carries the scent of jasmine and distant cooking fires as you find yourself drawn to the quiet courtyard behind your merchant lodging. The stars above Sisilmasa shine with the same brilliant clarity you've grown to love during countless desert nights, but tonight they seem to pulse with a different energy, softer, more welcoming, as if acknowledging the completion of your extraordinary journey. You settle onto the stone bench where you've spent many evenings recording your experiences, but your trading ledger remains closed beside you. Tonight is for reflection, not record keeping. The transformation you've undergone feels almost mystical in its completeness. The person who somehow arrived in this medieval world weeks ago bears little resemblance to the confident desert trader you've become. Your hands, once soft and uncertain, now bear the calluses of rope work and camel handling. Your eyes automatically scanned the horizon for weather signs and navigation landmarks. Your body moves with the economical grace of someone who has learned to conserve energy in harsh environments. Most remarkably, your mind has expanded to encompass ways of thinking and being that were once completely foreign. The gold dust secured in your strongbox represents more than commercial success, embodies proof of human adaptability, the rewards of cultural humility, and the extraordinary achievements possible when people from different worlds learn to work together. But the true treasure accumulated during this adventure exists in the realm of experience and understanding that no amount of material wealth could purchase. You have lived within one of history's great trading networks, participated in cultural exchanges that shaped entire civilizations, and proven to yourself that the boundaries between different times and places are more permeable than most people imagine. The sounds of sigil masa settling into evening, quiet, distant conversations in Arabic and Berber, the soft movement of animals in nearby courtyards, the gentle splash of fountain water create a peaceful soundtrack that seems to slow time itself. Your breathing deepens automatically, following the rhythms learned during countless desert evenings when the transition from day to night marked both ending and beginning. The harsh edges of daylight consciousness soften into the more receptive awareness that comes with approaching sleep. The mysterious forces that brought you to this time and place seem to be stirring again, creating the same sense of impending transition that marked your original arrival in this world. But now, instead of anxiety about the unknown, you feel profound gratitude for experiences that have expanded your understanding of human possibility and cultural richness. Whatever brought you here, whether dream, imagination, or forces beyond normal comprehension, has provided education and transformation beyond anything possible in ordinary life. The weight of accumulated experiences settles around you like the warm cloak that protected you during cold desert nights. Every lesson learned, every friendship forged, every challenge overcome has become part of who you are now. The knowledge of how to survive and thrive in one of Earth's most demanding environments, the ability to communicate across cultural and linguistic barriers, the confidence that comes from successful adaptation to completely foreign circumstances. These achievements will remain with you, regardless of where your journey leads next. As drowsiness begins to claim your consciousness, the boundaries between waking and sleeping, between past and present, between different worlds and different possibilities, start to blur in the most gentle and natural way. The stars above seem to lower themselves closer to Earth, their light becoming and more personal, as if they too are preparing for rest after guiding countless travelers across the vast expanses of sand and time. Your final thought before sleep claims you completely is one of profound appreciation for the remarkable people who welcomed you into their dangerous but rewarding world. For the patient animals who carried you safely across impossible distances. For the harsh but beautiful landscapes that tested and strengthened your spirit. And for whatever mysterious grace allowed you to participate in one of humanity's great adventures. The desert has taught you that the most extraordinary journeys often begin with a single step into the unknown. Guided by nothing more than curiosity, courage, and faith in the fundamental human capacity for growth and adaptation. The gentle rhythm of your breathing synchronizes with the eternal pulse of the desert night, and consciousness fades into the deepest, most peaceful sleep you have ever known, carrying you softward into dreams that may themselves become new doorways to places and times beyond imagination.